Warning, truth bombs are coming in this live stream. If you can't handle it, watch PBS Kids or Nickelodeon. Thank you so much for joining. As always, you can follow my Instagram at DreamRare. You can follow me on Twitter at LegendaryEnergy. You can follow my website at legendary.vision. As always, check the link below or the links below when this live stream is over. I'm going to post my donation link if you would like to support and fuel the movement. And also my email list, very important since social media is getting really creepy, cracking down on everybody. I have an email list now and that's been building so I could send you guys monthly emails or whatever. I'm going to wait about 5 or 10 more seconds, drink my coffee, and I'm going to talk about something that annoys me every morning when I log into Facebook and when I log into Twitter and when I check out what the news is. The SJW culture and the victim mentality, the blame everybody else and I'm so weak and, let's take pride in that, is just getting unbearable. And before anybody rushes to make a judgment or says anything, consider me a left reformer. I'm not a hater of the left. To be honest, I'm a news analyst. I analyze the news. I look what's going on and I analyze it. It's not a sports game to me. I'm not left and right. Like, I don't pick a side and I just blindly follow whatever. Sometimes the right gets mad at me when I don't agree with their agenda. A lot of times the left gets mad at me because I'm being honest. I have seen, from my analysis, I've seen the right move more center and I've seen the left go so far left. It's like they're on a different planet or in, out in the ocean. And I'm trying to reform the left because to anybody who's going to hate, just a little prequel to everything I'm about to say, you have to understand, if the left continues this delusional acting, and consider me somebody on the left trying to reform it, like an internal reformer, you're going to breed extremism on the right. You're going to lose everything. You're going to not only lose governmental positions, but you're going to lose the media, you're going to lose celebrity culture, and you're going to ruin, the free world for everybody with this level of hypocrisy and delusion. I'm just being honest. I'm calling it like I see it. I'm sorry it doesn't fall in certain people's lap for this particular topic, but this is just the truth, and all of these things are going to unfurl like this, whether people pay attention or not. So I'm actually not being mean. I'm not being negative, not being hateful. I'm not picking sides. I'm literally trying to help because this stuff is going to happen at this current rate. Give me about 5 seconds. I want to enjoy my coffee. And Rachel, real quick before I start, she said, labels divide us. I thought you were better than that. I use the term left and right just to group things in for certain things, like liberal, conservative, whatever. Of course, labels divide us, but there's a clear SJW victim mentality going on. So I'm just, I throw out words every now and then. Just take it with a grain of salt. It's not a big deal. So the media and a lot of, certain politicians on the left, I would say pretty much every Democrat, every progressive, Bernie Sanders, Jill Stein, even people I like Tulsi Gabbard, but more importantly, the media. They're trying to jam one narrative down our throat, and that narrative is basically blame everybody else. If you're, part of the LGBT community, if you're a woman, there's nothing you can do wrong. And you have to understand, I support the LGBT community. I support women. I'm glad when they speak out and they get in powerful positions and they're good people. But it's being so heavily jammed down our throat that every story I read, I'm just like, this is getting out of control. It's nothing about it makes sense. Everything's irrational. And it's a race to the bottom. It's like, who can be the bigger victim? Who can point the blame and be the weakest? You'll get a feature in Huffington Post. You'll get a feature on Twitter. Every single day, every article that I read and everything that they're trying to push down our throats is just straight victim culture, straight blame. They don't want optimism. They don't want happiness. They don't want somebody who persevered over, a bunch of obstacles and built a business, like a woman who built multiple businesses. They want everyone to be sad, pathetic, negative, and pretty much drag everybody down. And the irony of all of this, and what to me is the biggest problem with this, and why I'm speaking about it right now, is the freedom of speech is what makes America America. If we didn't have the freedom of speech, like a lot of other countries don't, everything else falls from that. That's why it's the First Amendment, because if we are not free to say what we want, then everything else will collapse. Noam Chomsky, who is a world-renowned person, for lack of a better term, on the left. You know, people on the left and the right respect him, or at least respected him before he got a little bit crabby. But he said, if you don't believe in freedom of speech for those who disagree with you, then you don't believe in freedom of speech at all. So he referred to great dictators and communists who Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propagandist of Germany. Noam Chomsky said, those people let people speak who agreed with them, but they didn't let people who disagreed with them speak. The irony of that is when I went to the Ben Shapiro protest, where they're protesting his freedom of speech, they're trying to shut down his free speech. The only answer I got in an hour and a half of talking to protesters, I said, why don't you guys get somebody on the left to, you know, have a debate with Ben Shapiro on the right, for lack of a better term? Nobody could answer me. No one said anything. They were just like foaming at the mouth, screaming, trying to shut Ben Shapiro down like a bunch of zombies. And one guy said, well, what do you want, Noam Chomsky to debate him? Blah, blah, blah. So the protester, the irony is, the protester was citing Noam Chomsky as his hero, as the hero of his side, yet he was doing the exact opposite of what Noam Chomsky has been preaching for 20 years, which is you don't shut down somebody's free speech who disagrees with you. And this is happening on all fronts. People are getting censored on Twitter. People are getting censored on Facebook. And it's only on one side. And it's only in a politically correct way. You can't say that because it offends me. And guess what? All of these things that we're being offended by, and trust me, I am the most compassionate and the most kind and the most considerate when it comes to people's feelings and their emotions, and also, you know, abuse and all of these things, bullying. I'm not a bully. I'm not an abuser. But these are first world problems. You know, this might be unpopular and politically correct to say, but even this accusation culture that we now live in the last 3 weeks, these are first world accusations and these are first world abuses. There's women who are in relationships where their husbands are beating them and sexually abusing them. These are the women I'm trying to rescue. These are the women I'm trying to help. I know they exist even in America. There are abusive people. I know there's abusive bosses and there are people. But you read some of these accusations and these Twitter, mainly Twitter, will give anybody a platform. If you complain or you cry or you act like a victim, you will get a platform. You will get New York Times will publish you, Washington Post will publish you, the Huffington Post will publish you, Newsweek and Vox will give you a platform. They don't care about the truth. They don't care about common sense. And to me, the real injustice there is now people who are getting raped, who are getting sexual abuse, there's rape gangs that exist all over Europe raping a bunch of women when they're trying to walk home. Literal rape, not like oh, I made a mistake 35 years ago and now I feel bad about it. And I'm not downplaying. I haven't read every single accusation story, to be honest. Certain ones are definitely, you know, have a lot of substance to them. And I'm like, man, that person should be held accountable. I'm sorry for that woman. But a lot of these stories, I mean, are we going to just pretend like any woman who accuses anyone of anything is 100% right? That's how you get the court systems where if you're a man and you divorce your wife, you know, you never get the kid. If you're a man and your woman accuses you of something, you almost always get arrested. We get that with political correctness. I'm reading a story about Jordan Chariton of the Young Turks, just for an example. I don't even like the Young Turks. I'm not a huge Jordan Chariton fan at all, but I'm reading his accuser's story, and it starts off with her saying, oh, he was on the Bumble dating app, and, you know, he was talking about women's bodies, and then he hit on a Starbucks employee, and I'm, whoa, like, is that sexual assault just because someone says it? I'm reading a lot of these other stories. Well, you know, I didn't want to do it, but then I just did it, but I feel like it was rape. And I'm very sympathetic to people abusing their power, and I'm not at all justifying it. But where is this going to go if every single person who is a victim of some sort gets a platform, no matter what? There's literally people getting raped every day. There's people getting abused by their spouses, and somehow they never get press. You go back 100 years ago, people's villages used to get pillaged and their whole family got raped. Not like oh, I didn't know what I was doing and, you know, I just fell victim to the situation. Like literally their entire door busted open. People came in and raped their whole family. This still happens all over the world. a lot of our SJW victim mentality, Huffington Post, Twitter feelings are just a victim culture that is just so embarrassing. I don't like Lena Dunham at all. I'm not a big fan. She's totally annoying to me. But I log into Twitter today, and they're blasting out to the kids and to everyone, oh, it's hipster racism. And they've created this new term, hipster racism, which is like passively, aggressively being racist when you're a hipster and making a joke. And I'm like, hipster racism? I don't even like Lena Dunham. I'm sure there are passive-aggressive racist weirdos. To be honest, most people like Lena Dunham are the most racist people. They are the passive-aggressive hipster racists. But at what point do we focus on the big, the big bombshell stories? There's Twitter. R&B artist Khalid or whatever. He got a woman groped his butt, grabbed his butt, and this is like a featured story with thousands of shares. And everyone's like, "Oh my God, this is horrific." I got my butt grabbed this week. I got groped, and guess what? It's just not a big deal. Like, there's people getting raped. If someone grabs your butt when they don't want you to, I'm not saying it's great, but as a man, like, is that the worst story? Imagine 10, 15 years ago when you're broke, coming online and being like, man, I got groped, a woman grabbed my butt. Like, there's so much war, there's so much poverty, there's so much corruption, there's so much physical abuse in the world. To me, these just seem like first world problems. And my biggest problem with it is that when these stories get featured and everything becomes racism and everything becomes sexual assault and nobody has any self-accountability, guess what? If somebody gropes me in person, I have two options. Either I do something about it, I hit them and say, hey, don't effing touch me. You know what I'm saying? Let them know that they can't sexually assault me. Or I just, whatever, like, haha, like, it's not a big deal. Unless it really goes too far, then it's like, okay, buddy, like, relax. But we're feeding into this like passive aggressive culture of like, I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm not going to like take any self-accountability, but I'm going to run to the press and, they're going to post a big story and make everyone feel good. There's a story 2 months ago about an LGBT woman who was like a trans LGBT woman who, walked up to a police officer with a knife and he asked her 15 times, hey, put the knife down, put the knife down, put the knife down, put the knife down. And then she got shot and killed, which is totally horrific and terrible. I'm sorry about that. But now the press is like, oh, she's an LGBT activist hero. That's not an activist. That's not a hero. That's somebody who either was trying to get a police to kill them or she was, very, very naive and very foolish. But these are the type of people that we're breeding. If you're strong and you're successful, I've struggled. I've had more pain. I've had more sorrow. I've had more negativity in my life. Times 50 of all of these stories that Twitter and Huffington Post and Vox and that they're featuring. But guess what? It made me who I am today. It made me a strong person. It gave me character. It gave me perseverance. And that's why I am strong. That's why I am powerful. That's why I feel like the world is mine, because I struggled so much. I have had a lot of struggle. I have had a lot of sorrow at points, but like I didn't run to Huffington Post to cry about it. And that's the type of mentality this is breeding. And this type of extremism, when it comes to shutting down people's free speech, you have the biggest hypocrites on the planet who, Noam Chomsky is my hero, yet I'm going to do exactly what Noam Chomsky says not to do, and I'm going to try to shut down people's free speech in the name of stopping fascism. You have, Media Matters and different organizations coming together to try to take Sean Hannity off the air, and there's a mass censorship on Twitter and Facebook where, the reason I use the term left and right, for lack of a better term, is because when you look down at it, if you want to group these people, the left is trying to shut down all the free speech of the right, censor them, in some cases even worse, get violent, and the right is just trying to exist. And of course, everyone from the left is not guilty from that. Everybody from the right is not, perfect and worthy of praise, but this is at the core of everything, and it's breeding weakness. It's breeding, I don't have to accomplish anything, or if I'm this person, I'm that person. It's convincing women and people of color and, whatever, that they can't do anything. When if you're a trans person or you're a woman or a person of color, it's the greatest time ever to be alive. It's so great that the things you're complaining about, the victimization that you're, so up in arms about, that's a dream of somebody 100 years ago of any color. The fact that we have computers in our hands and all of this technology, the SJW victimization culture is too much. And you have to understand, you don't have to understand, but it's just the truth. This is a large reason why President Trump won. And if Twitter and all of these social medias and platforms continue to try to shut down free speech on one side while blasting their opinions that millions of people don't agree with, I won't say nobody, it's either you're going to ruin America, which people are not going to let happen, so I won't even give you that much credit, but you're just going to keep losing. You're going to lose people. So now you have, I don't believe in sides, but if you want to talk politically, people have divided themselves into two sides, the left and the right, for lack of a better term. Of course, there's libertarians, progressives, and you got all that, but the right continues to, this is just my analysis, continues to evolve, continues to get kinder. They're against animal abuse in a lot of portions. They're listening, they're learning about deep government and who really controls the planet, and they're learning about the environment and all that. And the left just continues to lose their mind because they're incapable of having an intelligent conversation. Once again, I'm not saying everybody is, just for the people who are going to get offended by this, but it's just the truth. When you look at the core of the two groups, the left is skirting off so much that when I have a conversation like this, I mean, a lot of people or a lot of news organizations, they wouldn't want to hear it. Like, I'm enemy number one just for having a rational conversation and telling them your actions are making the right stronger. It's making them more powerful. And on the fringes, it's making people more extreme, because instead of having a conversation with them, when you try to shut down their free speech and you're calling them racist, sexist, xenophobic, and Russian, how do you think it's going to make people respond? I mean, it's either going to make rational people from the left move to the moderate side of the right, or it's going to make moderate people from the right be extremists on the right because they're so sick and tired of the BS. And to be honest, being a news analyst, being someone who tries to be as centrist as possible and as fair and as honest as possible, I'm clearly sick and tired of one side a lot more than the other side. And to compare it, I do think on the right, when it comes to radical Muslim terrorism, that the right has a bad approach as well. I'm not saying that it's not a problem. I'm not saying that it's not real. I know it is. And the left is completely delusional and ignorant about it. But the right just screams when that type of stuff happens. And to me, that is the equivalent of being counterproductive. Because if you're just screaming at a group of people, instead of having a conversation and trying to reform them, do you think it's going to make them move closer to the center? Or do you think it's going to make them more negative, hateful towards your group and extreme? So it happens on both sides, but the volume and the frequency that is happening on the left, for lack of better terms, is out of control, and they are the biggest hypocrites on the planet. Even, on the right, I heard a good example from my friend who is left-leaning. He said, when it comes to Republicans and Democrats, and I'm talking about establishment Republicans who modern-day conservatives don't even like, and Democrats, and this is coming from my left-leaning friend, he said at least the Republicans, even before Trump kind of had the revolution, at least they're calling it like it was. They're not pretending like anything. They're going to, give themselves more money. They're going to enrich themselves, and they're all about the economy and freedom of speech and freedom of gun rights. Like, they have core beliefs, even if, in a large portion, the modern-day Republicans or the past-day Republicans were corrupt. But the left, the Democrats, are just liars and hypocrites. So it's like, even if they're both birds of the same wing, as they were before the revolution really happened, and now you have better people coming in on the left and the right, at least the modern old Republicans were who they, at least not totally who they said they were, but they had core beliefs, and they stuck to them to an extent. The left is literally just that everything's racist, everything's sexist, everything's, oh my God, the Republicans are so bad, and we're going to help people of color, we're going to help Latinos. Meanwhile, they were the exact same people as the Republicans, just in disguise. And to me, that's a metaphor for how I see everything. It's like the modern day left, and when I say the left, I don't say good people who are kind environmentalists and considerate people on the left. I'm talking about the Huffington Post, the Vox, the Newsweeks, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the CNNs, the MSNBCs, the Chelsea Handlers, the Keith Olbermanns, the Milo and Ben Shapiro protesters, the Media Matters. They are the biggest hypocrites in America because they are everything they're trying to stop. Rachel Maddow is trying to stop conspiracy theories by being the biggest conspiracy theorist on television. Ben Shapiro and Milo protesters are trying to stop racism and fascism and bigotry by being the most racist, fascist, and bigoted people. And I've seen it firsthand. I went to the protest, and the most nasty, bigoted, hateful people there and the most fascist people were the people fighting fascism. You have the SJW culture running rampant on Twitter. Every one of their featured stories is ridiculous. They'll give a platform to everybody. And in my opinion, that's bad, not because I don't care about abuse and whatnot. It's because the real cases of abuse, there's kids being trafficked, there's women being beat and literally raped, and they'll give a platform to anybody. If you're LGBT and you have, rainbow hair and you're a Democrat, they'll give you a platform. And don't get it twisted. I don't care about the Republican Party either, but everything is so tribal. And yes, both sides are guilty of it, but does anybody care about the truth anymore? Does anybody care about honesty? Does anybody care about the real deal and really helping people? Or is this a sports game? Because Twitter, they're never going to feature a story about, a Democratic person abusing people and stuff. Their whole agenda is to frame every Republican and frame every conservative in the negative light that they want to frame them. And of course, like I said, both sides are guilty of it, but the SJW culture and the victim mentality culture is getting out of hand. People are becoming so soft, so lame and weak, and it's just so embarrassing, and it's so counterproductive because, once again, I have to say this every time because I know people are going to get offended, but the left, and like I said, I just explained who I consider the left for this speech just to group people in. They think they're helping. They think they're stopping racism. They think they're stopping the right wing. They think they're stopping fascism. They think they're stopping sexism and xenophobia and big government. But the irony of it is they're actually fueling every single thing that they're trying to stop. So when I talk about one side more than the other, this is why. Because you have one side that can tend to be ignorant. They can tend to be a little mean sometimes and nasty, and they can be a little hateful. And in certain topics, I think they are wrong. But you have one side that's being fascist in the name of stopping fascism, being racist in the name of stopping racism, being bigots in the name of stopping bigotry, and they're just so weak and pathetic, for lack of a better term, that they're fueling everything that they're trying to stop. All of the terrible things on the right that they're trying to stop, they're fueling. I've got tens of hundreds of messages from people who are just like, man, I've been left-leaning my whole life. I'm even further left than you, Anomaly. I was the biggest Bernie supporter, and I've always supported left-leaning, and people keep calling me racist just because I'm white anytime I talk about stuff, so F it, I'm a conservative. I get messages from Latino people, from Black and Muslim people who are like, I'm conservative, or I've been a liberal my whole life, Anomaly, I love your stuff, and I talk to them and, meet them in person, have a conversation, I say, man, I like Trump, and I like you, and I like people like you, because the modern day left is so deranged and delusional. They're scaring me because I can see what they're going to do. If they continue their tactics of just ruining everything and being the biggest hypocrites on the planet, they're going to make an extreme right-wing person win. Trump is not an extreme right-wing person, but at this rate, you're going to push people further and further and further right, and you're going to make all of these problems worse to the point where there may be an extremist right-wing president, because if Europe and the Middle East gets out of control because the left is just calling everything racist, sexist, and xenophobic, who do you think is going to win an election if there's, terror attacks ramp up times 20, and Europe starts getting destroyed, and Sweden gets worse, and the United States gets worse because of feral policies, because no one wanted to talk about border security and travel security, because everything is racist, and there's no possible way that we need these things, because, open borders make sense, and, we don't want to offend anybody, so let's just take down the fences and let cartels come in, let people get raped and shot, because, it'd be racist to have a conversation about the difference between racism and Mexican border security. There'd be a difference between, Mexicans and the fact that every Latino that lives in the United States is not an illegal Mexican. There's many legal citizens that are Mexican. There's a lot of Salvadorians and Guatemalans and Argentinians and Brazilians who come here, and they don't like any of the things you talk about. You talk to them, what happened to your government? How come you came here? Is it better here? 100% of the time they say, yes, America is way better than my home country. And 100% of the time, What happened? I asked everybody. I've talked to 20 plus people from South America. What happened? Why did it go bad? Oh, too much government and socialism. You know, they say socialism, or just getting too much power and giving too much things away. And next thing you know, the government's got all the power and all the money and all the control. And then it doesn't end up well. So it's the same story, but the modern day left, for lack of a better term, doesn't get it. They're fueling the right. So this is how disproportionate it's become. Most people on the left who watch CNN or watch Rachel Maddow or watch the New York Times or watch the Huffington Post or even watch somebody slightly more moderate like the Young Turks, they would watch this very honest, very fair, very accurate, very, fair, I don't know, that's enough adjectives, analysis. They would watch this and they would think it's extreme. I've been told, man, people think you're an extremist. What do you mean? Like, because they've skewed what the left is. They've hijacked feminism. Hillary Clinton just swallowed real feminism alive for her own agenda. They swallow the LGBT community. They swallow people of color. They swallow Latinos, thinking, grabbing all of their social justice rights and acting like it's a Democratic Party thing and everything they say is right. They've ruined almost everything on the left, to the point where this very honest, very, simple conversation would be considered extreme and, whoa, Anomaly's right wing now. I'm trying to prevent extremism on the right, because that's what's going to happen. And it's fine. I see there's people upset in the comments. That's fine. I implore you to not listen to me. Go ahead. Assume everything I'm saying is completely made up. It's a fabrication. See what happens. Continue acting like people are acting. Let Twitter act like they're acting. Let the Democrats act like they're acting. Let Bernie Sanders and the progressives act like they're acting. I don't mind, because I'm going to be okay. I'm strong. I'm optimistic. I'm not really worried. No matter how the scales flip, I believe in the good people in America, and I know if true racism or fascism or xenophobia hit the streets in a serious way, I know that conservatives and liberals, the best of both worlds, will be in the streets hand in hand together, fighting, this deranged ideology. Right now, what we have are first world problems, political arguments that we can't have grown-up conversations with. And the Ben Shapiro protesters, who are fascists trying to stop fascism, they're baby versions of the Media Matters and the left-leaning people who are trying to shut down Sean Hannity. You can't have a conversation with them. You can't be better than them. Sean Hannity, I don't even watch him, so I don't know what he's saying. I'm not co-signing whatever he's saying, but he's got the best ratings on television. So instead of getting a better news analyst, like, put me on MSNBC. No offense to anyone, but I guarantee you I could be the highest rated person on television easily. Not to brag, I just feel like that's true. But instead of trying to find someone like me or find someone more accurate or find somebody that could compete with Sean Hannity, they try to tear him down. They try to, instead of being better than Milo and Ben Shapiro, they try to tear him down. Instead of listening to someone like me, they try to scream and tear me down and label me all these things. So it's a losing strategy on every front. 65 million people voted for President Donald Trump, and I'll tell you what, the delusional people who listen to the celebrities and watch the news think, oh, we're going to impeach him any day now. There's all these Russia things. But the reality is, if 65 million people voted for him, there's over 100 million people in America who support him today. Because I didn't even vote for him, and I support him way more. I have friends that, have Muslim family that are super liberal that support him now because they're sick and tired of everything that's going on, and they know that the true threat to Muslims is the extreme left and the fact that they're breeding extremism on the right. There's people that I've talked to that have said, Anomaly, I've been left-leaning my whole life, and now I'm this. I've met people in person at Politicon who said, Anomaly, I was Bernie supporter, and then they put a Make America Great Again hat on. I see it in the flesh, and this is in Los Angeles. So imagine everywhere else in the world, there's over 100 million Americans who support the president. I can tell you right now, the polls are lying, just like they did during the election. 99% chance he's going to lose. They make up the polls themselves to try to justify their own opinions and then blast them out to the world as a manifestation thing. So if everyone believes it is true, they did it to Ron Paul before the internet existed. They said, Ron Paul doesn't exist. Ron Paul's not popular. Ron Paul's not popular. Ron Paul's not popular, to the point where Ron Paul just fizzled away. It's a self-manifestation of the media. That's why these are the greatest times, because before this year, before the internet, what they said self-manifested itself, because there was no other way to get your message out to the masses. But now that we have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all these other platforms, we're able to compete with the self-manifestation, which in part changes the world. That's why you see me blasting out a lot of positivity. Sometimes people tell me, don't, Anomaly, don't post all these inspirational, motivational quotes. No, those are all I'm going to post. I might stop posting political videos before I stop posting those, because that's me manifesting good in the world. That's me showing love and giving a good message to people, because I know if they see that message and that changes their day, and then they do something nice for someone else and it changes their day, or they're more considerate, or they're more compassionate, they're more kind, that in turn changes the world. So it's a very powerful thing that's happening. That's why you see Facebook nonstop throwing this victimization SJW culture in our faces, because they want us to be weak. They don't want you to be a beautiful, smart woman who owns a business, or loves her husband and stays at home and raises the kids to be right. Because if you raise your kids right, then they won't fall into the victim culture and they won't vote Democrat or a phony rhino Republican. So it's all really a trap, whether they know they're doing it or not. They don't want you to be a great mother. They don't want you to be a successful woman. They don't want you to be a smart, empowered woman who loves yourself and doesn't feel like a victim and knows that as a woman, you have greater power than any man on the planet. You possess a certain feminine energy that is just so rare and so amazing and so powerful. They don't want you to know that. I'm telling you this stuff because I want you to know that. I want you to know that you have the tools, even if you have nothing. When I started this stuff, I had no money. I had negative money. I had broken headphones and a laptop, and I just worked hard for 9 years. Instead of crying and writing on Huffington Post or waiting 40 years to talk about some guy who groped me in West Hollywood, I became things, and I don't hold it accountable. I've been wronged 30 plus times, but guess what? I'm not going to go to any newspaper and talk bad about anybody who wronged me, because I pray for them and I wish them love and I wish them luck and I wish them success. I don't care. Anything that happened in my life made me who I was and brought me to this point now. So there's no sort of negativity in my mind, and that continues to propel me. But Twitter, they want you to be negative. They want you to be weak. They want you to be hateful. The mainstream media, they want you to be this way, because if you are that way, you're easy to control and you'll vote the way they want you to vote. It's identity politics, race, religion, gender, sexual orientation. Use those things to, control the population. So I'm very compassionate. I'm very considerate. I do care about people who are wronged in some ways, but the SJW culture and the modern day, state of the left, for lack of a better term, is so ridiculously hypocritical, so ridiculously counterproductive to true discrimination and to true abuse and to all of the things they're trying to stop, true fascism. It's going to breed a stronger right as it is. The news is not going to tell you this stuff. The polls are not going to tell you this stuff. But there are hundreds of millions of people who support President Trump. Most of them won't say it because they'll lose their job. They'll lose their friends and, they'll lose their source of income. But I see it all over the city. I see it everywhere. People just don't want to say it. Intelligent people, they're keeping their cool, calm, and collected. But if it's like this in Los Angeles, I can't imagine what it's like all over the world. We're sick of the political correctness. Political correctness, as George Carlin said, is fascism in disguise. Political correctness is lying to make somebody else feel better. It's lying. It's a lie. In its definition, it basically says, it doesn't say, oh, it's the truth. It says, it's like switching your words when it comes to sexual orientation or race to not offend anybody. So it's basically saying lying. And I'm not saying to be racist and sexist. I'm saying to be the opposite. I think all people are unique and amazing and beautiful and smart and capable of anything. And I've never said otherwise. But political correctness and the SJW victim culture is breeding weak people. It's breeding people who are incapable of anything. And to be honest, these are the most privileged times ever. I mean, the life that I live is incredible. I wake up every morning, I say a prayer, I thank, God, I thank everybody for everything. It's so incredible. And when you read these complaints and you read these stories, you're just like, what? How did they think this is okay? Like, who told them? That's how privileged and, lucky that they are, that they live such a life like that they think that these stories are bombshells, when in reality there's, slave trade in Libya, and Twitter won't feature it. Nobody wants to talk about it. Literal slaves still being traded. And the featured story on Twitter is Lena Dunham is hipster racism. And I don't even like Lena Dunham. She's annoying, and I'm sure she probably is a racist, because everybody who fights it ends up being the most, the worst culprits in my personal experiences. So let me know what you guys think. Once again, much love to people that are real victims and really going through stuff. It's not to downplay it, it's not to shame victims, but I am trying to make people stronger, because this culture of, you don't have to be competitive at all, and if you roll over and lay down on the side of the street, you're a bigger hero than if you work hard and persevere and don't out everybody in your past that did something negative to you. It's like we're rewarding people for doing the wrong things, and we're demonizing people for doing the right things. If you're a strong man, you get all these names. If you're a strong woman, or you're a white woman who voted for Donald Trump, all of a sudden you're racist. They won't even have a conversation with you. That's how racist they are. They won't even be like, hey, why did you vote for Donald Trump? What did you like about him? They just immediately assume you're a racist, because they're incapable of critical thinking or a conversation. And it's just going to get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, because we're tired of the SJW culture. We're tired of political correctness, and we're tired of everything being racist, sexist, xenophobic, and Russian, when we know it's not. And it's a disservice to real crime, to real corruption, and to real racism, sexism, and xenophobia. And this is coming not as a hate, but this is coming as a warning to the left, as a reformation of the left. Because if people continue to ignore this and continue to push further and further and further and further, you will make the right stronger, you will make it more powerful, you will make extremism more, and you will potentially breed an extremist right-wing president in the future to combat your ridiculousness on the other side. So it's not a hate, it's not a picking sides, this is truly a warning from somebody who's been left-leaning your whole life. This strategy is wrong, it's counterproductive, it's negative, it's weak, and it's borderline pathetic at this point. So please just consider this and act accordingly, because it's not going to end up well. I can see it. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for considering. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless all animals and ants on the planet. Insects especially, they're underrated. Just because they're tiny doesn't mean they're not beautiful. Who knows what's going on inside their little heads? They're powerful. They hold up leaves that are 10 times the weight of cars. So I'm going to post my mailing list below. Sign up for that. And I'm also going to post my donation link below if you would like to donate. Your donations are the reason I'm able to pursue this, and I'm doing my podcast. I'm getting more equipment. I'm doing a lot of things, so thank you for that. And by next year, I promise you I will get some other income to counter that. I'm trying to do school speeches. If you guys know any schools, universities, or events that would like me to speak, I would love to speak about political stuff. I would love to speak not politically at all. I'd love to speak spiritually, motivationally, and inspirationally. That would be amazing. So if you guys have any connections there, let me know as well. Have a good week.